as the season winds down, we're looking forward to this year's playoffs. And one team, well, look, their playoff hopes might be in jeopardy. All right, now I'm not saying it completely is out of realm that they make the playoffs or they miss the playoffs, but without this player this week, it's going to be a lot tougher per Ari Mirov. The Texans quarterback CJ Stroud, who has a concussion, is now doubtful for Sunday's game versus the Titans, meaning that Davis Mills is likely to get the start. Now, CJ Stroud hasn't practiced for 2 straight days, still in that concussion protocol, which basically means you can't do anything, okay? You have to wait until a neurologist or the athletic trainer or whoever it is gives him the clearance to say, hey, you're good to go, you can practice, you can start playing. Now, being that he is doubtful, there's still a chance that he could end up playing Sunday, but it's more far-fetched than if he was cleared, say, yesterday or something like that. It'd be a little bit better or a little bit easier to see or gauge who's going to be the actual starter. But right now, we're going into this one or this week thinking that Davis Mills is going to take over the starting role. Now, the Texans, they're 7-6, currently sitting 1 seed out of the playoffs, right behind the Indianapolis Colts. If we take a look at the current AFC playoff race right now, obviously the 4 teams that are set at the top, the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Chiefs, and the Jags, I expect them to kind of stay where they're at least for the time being. Cleveland could maybe catch up with Baltimore, but I just don't see that happening. Baltimore's been playing some pretty good ball. But if you're the Houston Texans, look, the last 4 games of the year are very, very crucial, very critical to making the playoffs because you're a division rival. All right, the Indianapolis Colts currently have that 7 seed in the wild card spot, so you have to hope that they lose the game. Look, I don't believe, or I guess the Houston Texans get to play the Colts one more time this year. That could be the deciding factor or the deciding game of who makes the playoff and who doesn't. That's the last game of the season, week 18, going to be a very, very tough one. But going into this Tennessee Titans game, look, you haven't played them all year. You need to beat them at least twice or at least this time around. And doing it with Davis Mills is going to be a lot tougher than if you had CJ Stroud, who suffered that concussion against the Jets just last week where they lost 30-6. It was an atrocious game from the Texans, something we weren't used to seeing at least this season, maybe in the past, but not this year with CJ Stroud. He left pretty early. But going into this week, this is a must-win game for the Houston Texans. They have 4 games remaining on their schedule just like everybody else, and 3 of those 4 are division matchups, which means you have to win them all right? Only one of them is not. Let's look at their remaining schedule. This weekend, they play, obviously, the Tennessee Titans. That's a noon game. I will be at that game. Pretty pumped up about it. See Will Levis taking on Davis, Dougie Mills, or whatever they like to call him. But then they got Cleveland, Christmas Eve, another game that they have to win. That's the game I'd expect CJ Stroud to be back and ready to play for, which means we could be up for a very, very fun game that week. And then you got the Titans yet again. Another have to win ball game. That one is at home against Tennessee, and then to finish out the year, like I mentioned earlier, is the Indianapolis Colts, and that game right there could very well mean if you make the playoffs or if you don't make the playoffs. You're going to have to win these ball games and stack up these wins. Right now, the Texans, look, they're 7-6. So are the Colts. So are the Steelers. So there's a chance they make the playoffs. And without CJ Stroud this weekend, it's going to be a lot tougher road going forward. Now, Davis Mills isn't that bad, right? He's a good quarterback. When I looked at his stats, it screamed good backup quarterback. It didn't scream starter like he was the past 2 years before Stroud got there. I think he had like 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions just a year ago, and it was basically the same when he got there as a rookie for the Houston Texans. But Stroud brings so much more energy. This team is a lot different than previous years since that Deshaun Watson era when they had, Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt. They were flying around. They were making the playoffs. This is a new revamped team, but this weekend is a must-win ball game, and after, losing to the Jets, they have to bounce back, and they have to do it against a division team who's playing some pretty decent ball as of late. Will Levis just might be a guy, and Hopkins is his favorite target. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a fun weekend, but right now, currently, CJ Stroud has been listed as doubtful against the Tennessee Titans. Doesn't mean that he won't play, but the chances are very, very slim. Davis Mills might get the start. So you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much, much appreciated. Have a great rest of the night, folks, and you just got your fix with the Wicks.